Welcome back. I'm Joe Scarborough. Since September 11th, it's been clear to most people that the Immigration and Naturalization Service has its priorities way out of whack. The agency that gave visas to the hijackers and can't seem to keep track of nearly 500,000 foreign students in this country has decided it's going to enforce the letter of the law when it comes to at least one case. Kwame James, the hero who subdued shoe bomber Richard Reed on a transatlantic flight, saving the lives of nearly 200 people, is now an INS target. James is a Canadian-born semi-pro basketball player who just lost his spot with the Continental Basketball Association's Gary, Indiana Steelheads. Now the INS says it won't renew his 6-month work permit and will effectively force him to leave the country. Kwame James joins us live from Virginia Beach. Mr. James, when I laughed in that intro, certainly not at your horrible plight, but I got to admit, I mean, the INS is just over the top stupid in this case. I mean, what exactly is going on?
It's a crazy situation. It's not so much the issue of having to leave right now, but there is no visa or work permit for an athlete in training, which is technically what I am right now, trying to make another team, whether it be the CBA or, one of the minor leagues, and it makes it very difficult for me to stay.
Yeah, so, and obviously, Mr. James, I mean, tell me, isn't it the case if they take away your work permit and you're not able to practice, you're not able to train, I mean, you've got no chance of being picked up by another team, and that's as good as deporting you, isn't it?
Right, exactly. So not being allowed to work kind of forces me to leave the country, which, I've been here for the last 8 years, and I mean, it's a beautiful country, if not the best in the world, and all I'm asking is to be allowed to work.
Well, Mr. James, I'll tell you what, and first of all, I got to tell you, these days, I appreciate hearing you say what you said about America. A lot of people aren't saying that right now, and I think that's something the INS ought to pick up also. But I want to take you back to December of 2001. Tell us what happened on the plane when you helped subdue Richard Reed, the shoe bomber.
Just as quick as I can summarize something, I was flying from Paris to Miami, and, I was asleep, woke up. Richard Reed was in a scuffle with the flight attendant and one of the guy at the time, and I ran back there, helped subdue him, and me and about 3 other guys, we tied him up, and I stood guard over him for about 2.5 hours till we got diverted to Boston.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. And how many people were on that flight?
197, I think. That's the overall total.
Amazing. Saved almost 200 people's lives with your actions. Let's go to Michael Wilds right now. He's an immigration attorney who's offered to represent you, Mr. James, on a pro bono basis after hearing about his case. He joins us from our Msnbc studios. Let me ask you, Mr. Wilds, I mean, this is a pretty amazing story. Amazing for what happened on that airplane a year ago, and also pretty amazing on how inept and stupid the INS seems to be. Tell me, does this usually happen in INS cases? I mean, do we usually have this level of ineptitude at the INS?
Unfortunately, Joe, this is common practice in many cases we see post 9/11. I represented a score of spouses whose wives and husbands perished in the World Trade Center attack, and with all of the assurances given by our government, their spouses were put in removal proceedings. This gentleman is no different a hero than Tom Beamer and Jeremy Glick. And, in my faith, the Jewish faith, there is a concept of hakaras hatov. Good deeds should be rewarded in kind. What do? Thank you for sitting on this terrorist and now get on a plane and leave? I think not. This country needs to not only send a beacon, an example of this gentleman to other countries, but make sure that we have assurances that are respected. It's good business for our government to respect assurances. This gentleman was told, if you testify, if you help us, we will help you. Just because the shoe bomber decided to cop a plea doesn't mean we turn our back on heroes. That's not what America is about.
Absolutely. Let's go to Papadimitrias. He's a co-director of the Migration Policy Institute, a former director of the Immigration Policy under the U.S. Department of Labor. Let me ask you, Dimitri, I mean, isn't there some way that Congress can step in and do something here and provide some sort of relief to Mr. James because of the heroic efforts and his efforts to save 200 lives on that flight to Miami last year?
Well, Congress has the ultimate authority on all immigration issues. He can actually do whatever he wishes. Tomorrow he can convene, or if in the process of meeting you could have any kind of a resolution passed, probably by voice vote, and he can take care of Mr. James's problem. But perhaps we don't have to go that far. There are all sorts of provisions in the immigration law, both in the permanent system as well as the temporary system, that really have been designed to try to reward or assist people like Mr. James.
Joe, I would disagree, if I may.
Go ahead.
Joe, you know, the fact is this gentleman has a myriad of options. He could have applied for an H visa, a P visa if an international team sponsor him, or an O as an outstanding basketball player. But this gentleman shouldn't be tasked to have to do something when he stood as a hero in protecting our citizens. And unfortunately, sir, it does take an act of Congress, both houses and the president, to sign to give this gentleman a fighting chance. And that's just unfortunate. And again, post 9/11, we need to make sure that we treat people like this with dignity as our heroes.
And
it's funny that you're trying to disagree with me while I'm not disagreeing with you. As you know, at least as well as I do, we have the S visa, S as in Sam visa in the non-immigrant system, that would allow this gentleman to stay here for pretty much as long as the Attorney General wishes.
But that's only if he's going to testify at trial,
and
sir.
Then,
well, there's no trial. He pled guilty.
Let's go to Mr. James. Mr. James, what's your next step?
I mean, I'm hoping, like what he just said, that somebody with power could maybe veto something and help my situation out. Because my number one goal is to pursue my basketball dreams. I think I'm really happy to be alive and have a second chance at just life in general. And I've been through a lot because of Richard Reed, and I just want to be allowed to work and achieve my goals.
Well, Mr. James, we all certainly hope you get that opportunity, and I'll guarantee you somebody's watching in Washington, and hopefully they'll do something to help your plight. I want to thank all of you for being on.
Pleasure.
Coming up, a big twist for the search for Lacey Peterson. Are the police closing in on her husband? What's going on with the investigation? We'll check on that up next.